My name is Madelene. I work at Architectura. That is the Swedish Center for Architecture and Design. Perhaps you haven't heard about us, probably. We actually changed our names a couple of years ago, The government renamed us. Formerly, we were the Swedish Museum of Architecture, and now we're the Swedish Center for Architecture and Design. Sweden, then, it is the land of IKEA and ABBA. And for the younger audience, it's the land of Avicii. And it's situated it's a small country up in the north. Yesterday I learned that Bogota has 8 million inhabitants. The whole of Sweden have 9. So it's a tiny little country up in the north. Architectura is situated in Stockholm, and according to Iberia, Stockholm is in Gävle, which is a total different town. So I have to have this little geography lesson so that's where Stockholm is. So now we're all on the same map. This is Stockholm, and on this little island, there is a place called Architectura. We are quite happy because we have this wonderful building that makes it possible for us to really talk about good architecture. And the architect is Spanish. A Spanish architect that really understands the importance of place. He shaped the house around the nature on this little island, so that you can see here the shadows from the trees. So he protected the trees on this island. So it's Rafael Moneo, if you've heard about him. I hope so. Yeah. And also he had got the sense about Swedish architecture, what's typical of Swedish architecture, our total need of light. Sweden is a very long country, and it's a very dark country during a couple of months. So in the spring, we are a little bit like small surikats, you know, those small animals. We're standing there out in the sun and say, sun. And right now, I'm a bit disappointed of Spain, because it's warmer in Stockholm than in Pontevedra. So, let's go to the more serious business. Architectura is a national authority. It is a museum with collections. We shall increase awareness and interest in architecture and design, and also the impact on people and society. And this is one of the things that really triggers me. I really love this. This is why I want to work at Architectura. We will be a place for the professionals in our field. We work towards and give guidelines on how to reach Sweden's national goals for architecture and design set by the government. And this is the only museum in the whole of Sweden that has that assignment, to advise the government on how Sweden should reach its national goals. We got this assignment a couple of years ago, so we still are trying to find our ways through this. This is then the goal. Architecture, form, and design shall contribute to a sustainable, equal, and less segregated society with well-designed spaces where everybody should get good conditions to have an impact of our common living environment. Whoopa. Yeehaw! Congratulations, now shall we do that? This is all the rules that we get from the government. Authorities shall work exemplary, I like that. That means that I would have liked to take the train to Pontevedra instead of flying, because it's an environment. Aesthetical, artistically, and cultural values should be taken in account and developed, not just the economical parts. Bit hard to struggle around that. But what I'm doing right now is collaboration and cooperation is developed in Sweden and abroad. That's why I'm here. Knowledge about architecture, form, and design is developed and spread. That is sort of, you know, a museum thing. It's sort of why we exist. If you have these fancy words about what we are doing and why we're doing it, and Arctis is a little bit special because the fantastic architecture that we got from Rafael Moneo, we wouldn't have got that without having working together with children. That was sort of, the government say, you have to do work with children and young adults, then we can give you this building. So it's the fundament, the basis of our existence in this larger scale. This is also, instead of writing these fancy words, this is also what architecture education at Arctis is about. Exploring, this is actually our cultural minister that is walking with a mirror on her nose, experiencing the ceiling of Arctis. This is the way we start almost all our school programs. We believe in learning by doing, that you have to do things. And also having a bit of fun. And I've been very pleased to hear this word so many times here during this conference, fun. Because I believe if you're going to learn something, to get through all, you know, these ideas that you have to connect to your feelings. And when I start working with a group, and I start by doing this crazy thing, by walking in the ceiling, I totally enjoy every time when I hear this laughter behind me. Because then I know I've got them. Now I got a good foundation for an educating moment. So that is really one of my best feelings about architecture education. It is fun. Thanks to Jorge and a little bit of a combination of my own ideas, I sort of put up this definition. I'm not an architect, so I write. Jorge, an architect, he sort of made small bubbles and handwritten, etc. I highlighted and fattened the things that we are more doing at Arctis. Because urban regeneration through participation processes would be very hard for us to do. Because in Sweden, the municipalities, they have their own decision rights. So if we as a government comes out and say, yeah, we want to do a participation project with you, and they goes like, yeah, or not. Why should we do that with you? You're from the government, and we decide what we want to do by ourselves. So I think all of us in this room, we work in total different conditions, under different rules, with different kind of groups, and in different surroundings. I really would love to thank every one of you to have made the effort to come here, organizing this possibility for us to share ideas. But I still find it a little bit problematic in a way that how can we take this to the next step? We have all these absolutely fantastic individual projects, but how can we sort of tune them up, take the next step? We share knowledge, but we also say that each project is unique. Each meeting is unique. So you can't really straight on transport something. You have to adapt it. So how on earth, and I do not have the answer on this, shall we sort of scale this up? Because during the 70s, there were some city studies in Europe where they engaged children. In the early 2000s, there was, when I was younger, they gathered up in Finland a network called Place. Also young, engaged people. And now, 20 years later, we are here. So what is the next level? I do believe that research is one of those things. Do the research. I really loved Angela Million's lecture yesterday because it's so important that we learn from what we do in a scientific way. That is one of the ways forward that I believe in. Yeah, at Arctis, we work at learning architecture as a language. Learning through architecture, as a lot of people have been talking to, I usually use architecture as an umbrella. Because you can have math, science, different subjects under that umbrella, but the umbrella is architecture. It's fantastic. The schools loves us. And of course, while we're doing this, we are creating didactic material about architecture and design. For us, the schools is central, so teacher training, my friends. There is the place where we should snuggle in our knowledge, because we are only so many, but the teachers are so many more. And each teacher, during a lifetime, reaches so many children. So who of you in here today is teachers? You are my favorites. Because you're doing a great job. I really, really love it. Because that's the best. Of course, also schools is so important because that's where children from all social groups and different conditions meet. That's one of the few arenas in society where we're sort of equal, hopefully. But as we come back to the most important word, fun. Architecture education is fun. This little girl is inside what we call the secret room. There's a room where only children can go into, and it's made out of air. And then they have to wait for 2 hours before we let them into that room in our school program. The foundation for most of our school programs is our permanent collection that is describing Swedish architecture in 1,000 years. I do love this exhibition because it contains a lot of models that's easy for people to read. Drawings, not that much, but children understand the models. But I can talk about anything from constructions to ecology to aesthetics within this exhibition. So this is sort of the foundation. But I also believe that talking about the architectural history is maybe not that much about the facts. It's about storytelling. We'll show you a picture later on how the mind, the brain works with storytelling. So now I'm going to take you out for a little journey. The journey into this building. It is Swedish, the Stockholm City Library, made by one of our Sweden's biggest architects, Gunnar Asplund. And he is a tricky man. He takes you on a journey. I don't know about you, I'm always late with my books to the library. So I'm going to return them a little bit, late to the library. So running. And then I'm going to go up the steps towards the entrance. And that's where he gets tricky. Because you don't know if you're going to take 2 steps, 2 long steps, or if you're going to take 3 short. We call them donkey steps. Which means that I have to relate my body to the place here and now, otherwise I will fall. So let's choose 2 long steps. And then you go up towards this enormous boutique. And then there is a little door here that you enter, and you step into the library's first part. And the walls are black. Here he uses the oldest trick in the architectural handbook. Put someone in a black room and give them a sense of light somewhere. They will be dragged like flies to a piece of sugar towards the light. And he makes it a little bit tricky to us. Of course, the walls is actually leaning inwards like this when you're walking up the stairs. Quite normal this time. And then you enter up to the rotunda. And please close your eyes, everyone. And when you're coming up from this dark space, it's narrow stairs, and then you come up into the rotunda. You get this wonderful smell of books. Because you're in the heart of this city library. You can open up your eyes. Because architecture is about movement, it's about using all your senses, and he really masters that situation. So this is the way I work with groups, telling them sort of stories, give them journeys in their heads. Telling stories is very strong. Your left picture on the top there shows you on how much your brain is working if you're given facts. 2 small dots. And the other part of the brain is when you're told a story. And then it's even more powerful if you use more of your senses. So maybe that's why architecture education is so strong. Because you use the stories and your body and your senses. And in ArchDes, we know we only have the house, which is not so only. We have the permanent exhibition that we work with, telling these stories. We have these spatial experiences, like this is the balloon. And we believe in that you have to try it out. Because one of our core things is that we believe that you learn in different ways. Some people like to look. Some people like to do. Some people need to feel. The different learning styles, auditive, visual, kinetic, etc. So we try within a normal school program, 2 hours, to fit in as many of these parts as possible, so that everyone can get a little bit out of it. And yesterday we talked about how we get feedback on our workshop and doing research. For me, this is a little piece of research each time. Because I can hear, if I speak about something there, I can then see in the workshop, hearing the pupils or the students talking and trying to do, then I can see directly, did I explain it clearly enough? So it's really an ongoing learning system for me too. To attract the schools, because they pay to come to us and they have their curricula. We have tried to show them that they are actually in our 3 main programs about city planning, construction material and aesthetics. they can sort of tick boxes in all of these subjects. So this is quite important to show the headmasters that they get something from a visit. It's not just jolly fun to go to a museum. We can actually deliver content to them. So this is for the compulsory school, and this is for the upper secondary school in Sweden. I refer back to Angela yesterday, and the little piece of research that has been done about that if children has been taking part of a built environment education project, they are slightly better in the next one because they're starting to grasp the processes, etc. This was a project that I did out in one of the suburbs of Sweden, in a housing area called Vårby, which is an area that is lower income, socially problematic area. And but from our architectural point of view, it's a fantastic master plan, and the architecture is really, really well planned. So to give the students at the school, local school out there, we sort of made city walks using our senses, and I think we are measuring and discussing here the distance between the houses. And as we Swedes are so obsessed by light, we place the houses so far away so even the lowest floor can get sunlight into. So the sun decides the distance between the buildings. So in different ways we try to show them what's really the high value of these areas. And then to my surprise and joy, we're going to have a new exhibition at Arctes in 1st of June it opens. It's called Public Luxury, which is really what we've been talking about on this whole conference. What is public luxury? Can we afford public luxury, or can't we afford to not have public luxury? In this show there will be an example. We will have dansbana, which is a dance floor. This is also the name of these two architects that have made their own firm called the Dansbana, dance floor. They were out in this municipality of Vårby, and we're looking on what could children do during their leisure time outdoors. And they discovered that there were football fields, basketball possibilities, there were skateboard places, but when you come to look of it, that is not really what girls are doing. So suddenly they realized that it was a gender equality, or not, it was not equal possibilities for girls and boys to be out in the public space. And then they started talking to the children, to figuring out what would they like to do, and dance was one of those things that popped up. So what they have done is to build a really good dance floor with loudspeakers that is very, very well designed. They are made to stand outdoors and last with solid materials, and you just plug in your phone and then you can use whatever music you want to. Yes. I will pass it on to them. So that is maybe an idea, a loudspeaker somewhere. It doesn't have to be this big, but it is a way to engage girls in the public realm as well. Continuing on this public luxury, we have been debating about terrorist stops, or who will decide in society on how it looks. This is two projects also in this exhibition. We had this horrible terrorism attack a while ago at this street in Stockholm, and now they want to put up ugly concrete stuff. So what we made a commission to a couple of designers to come up with ideas on how can those not be just concrete blocks. How can they be useful and add something for the city? So here it's a bicycle stand as well. It's not just a concrete block. And also discussions that we've had, who will decide? This was this massacre out in this Norwegian island, Utøya. Was it 4 years ago or something? And this is a proposal by a Swedish designer, an artist called Jonas Dahlberg, that one of the other islands should have this cut. But 7 people living close by don't want to have it. So now it's gone. It will not be built. So it's also a question who will decide of the in the public space. And Sweden has, as we heard yesterday in Germany, also laws that you have to engage children in city development processes. And I think it's a new kind of profession that is growing. I think that if they had asked children about this monument, it would maybe be a yes. As we are a museum, what I have to work with and what is the exhibitions. A couple of years ago we did a show on Olafur Eliasson, an Icelandic-Danish he travels between art and architecture. He builds bridges, he makes art, and, he's a little bit in between, which I love. In our big hall, and this is the same hall that the model that Jorge and someone else was describing for 1968, the one where you could jump into the foam and build and construct. It's the same hall that we have this. And now it will become a little bit tricky. Because I want to start this film, but I don't see. Sound, please. chosen this project because it is telling you a little bit on how we want to work. I love working together with different forms of art. I find it important that we do that within architecture education. Olaf Eliasson's work is very much about, you can talk about light, the blending of different kinds of lights. How do you create space? But in this project, we want to give the young adults a possibility to explore this space, but also create something by themselves. And also to introduce that to our audience. That's one of our strong sides. We have an audience who comes to the museum, you know, to engage with what we do. And this is giving these young adults a platform to tell someone else something to the audience. So we made an open night when they performed this piece of architecture in the form of dance, which was very successful. And I also believe that when they're looking back, or we can do it this way. If you're looking back on where you were going into school, think of if you experience or if you can remember something that you did when you were in school. Has everyone picked something that they sort of remembers from going to school? How many of you remembers sitting in class writing essays? Ah, 2. How many of you remembers something that was done outside the school building? That was more hands, thank you. One of my gurus is Anne Bamford. That has done a very global research called the wow factor that proves that art-rich education is really, really strong. All this brain things comes from her. To show that doing something else than sitting in your desk is really important because you learn so much more in those situations. So I think these students will remember this forever and also then get a good relationship to a museum, which I find important because it's a source of knowledge. They can come back and they can tell the kids or their friends that I did this here. And this is by far the most popular exhibition that we have. It's the gingerbread exhibition. It's gingerbread houses. In Sweden, around Christmas, we have this tradition of eating gingerbreads. And this is the way to talk about construction. Realize how materials is different. This is our worst exhibition to make. Because everyone who bakes a pepparkakshus, a gingerbread house, can bring it to the museum and we promise to display it. So each year we're very worried about, will there be enough? And then when it is enough, we will be a bit worried, will there be too much? So around 100 gingerbread houses is making their way out to this little remote island in the middle of Stockholm, carried and transported, and we display them. And this, my friends, is architecture education. I think it's around 40,000 persons in 6 weeks that see this exhibition. And maybe 90% of those is children. So this is by far the most important architectural education time that we have. And then we have you lovely teachers. We try to provide you with as much material as possible. We work with different training, teacher training educations as possible. We use exhibitions. We have the tools. And if you're looking on this woman, you see that she makes a heart. I tried to Google translate this into Spanish yesterday. I didn't really success, but this is a dass in Swedish, which is an outdoor loo. looking like this. You know, before we had water closets, you did your thing in another house. Then back to her. This is something that I've nicked. This good things about meetings like this. You get ideas from different persons and then you transform them into your own. This is something that I've nicked. Architecture gymnastics, whatever you could call it. Give them a picture of a house and they have to interpret it with their bodies, together in a group or by themselves. This is something that is going on right now. A lot of this that I'm speaking about is things that we have done. But right now we are in a slight limbo. We got a new director a year ago, a Brit, that is known from BBC. He's one of the presenters of a house renovation program. His name is Kieran Long. And works with this piece that you talked about, with architecture education, which is really nice, but in television versions. So right now we have no exhibitions at all. We're moving the permanent exhibition, we're building a new gallery space inside of a house, and building this new big public luxury. So for the moment I'm not doing any BEs at all for the moment, except for this. I'm project management of a move and trying to be a detective, finding all the things that I need. But this is then the new gallery space called the Box that's situated inside this hall where the Madelene was. The first exhibition there is an exhibition that is a very, very slow film from inside these archives of models of Stockholm. Because the Stockholmers had this weird idea about that it would be possible to build a model of every house in the whole of Stockholm. So this is Stockholm, in size 1 to something. They are rethinking that idea right now. But there is this artist and filmmaker who's been filming this very, very slowly. And that is going to be the first exhibition in this box. It's quite a weird idea to try create a city in miniature and being paid for it. Okay, but as education is my side of this, I was thinking, what on earth would we do that? Yeah, okay. We have fantastic archives. That is inside the archive rooms, magazines. There is probably maybe 20 people per year that visits them. Everything is in these folders. You have no idea what's inside them. So, thanks to a quite brave director, he let me in there with a group of youngsters. So we have been exploring these spaces, these archives. I've given them lectures. We have looked at the original materials, opening up the folders, really see the, behind the real architecture out there. And then they are going to perform dance solos according, dancers in here? Anyone dancer? No, good. Neither am I. But the dance teachers, they are very into dance. And there's some solos that are going to do according to a special technique. That is that you have one position, and then you move out, and then you do this motion and another one, and then you continue like building on. It's called something fancy. But this was just a couple of guys then. So this is not, they're going to create films that will be on our website after the 25th of May or something like that. But these guys then just went for it. So let's see if the technique. Sound, please. Thank you very much. Please send me an email. Let me know when you're in Stockholm. I can show you Architects. I hope I've given you some new insights, new ideas, and a small fraction of what we do. We do things abroad, we do things everywhere else, but so much being in this field of work for 20 years gives you quite a well to dig from. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Madelene.